And now recording is in progress. So, welcome to Life Writing Live. This is uh, Friday, March 14th. And I am Stephen Barnes, the creator of the Life Writing Fire Dance magic formula and other technologies that are all things that I created because I knew that my career was going to be stalled for as much as 30 years while I needed the culture to change. And so I began to ask, how in the hell can I possibly survive for 30 years and keep my heart alive while I wait for that change to happen? And in the process of doing that, I've studied martial arts and yoga and meditation and many other things. And I survived. And now the culture has shifted to a fascinating degree. And the only question I have now is there enough of me left to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are there? It's a real question. And I say yes. I say yes. So we will see. But one of the things I do is I like to test these things. And the way I test them is by sharing them and seeing what kind of results other people get from the same approaches. So I would like to now introduce my co host, the lovely, talented, beautiful Ms. Tanana Reeve Dew.
Oh, there I am. Oops, let me shift the camera down a little bit. Hi,
Yeah.
everybody. My kitty is sleeping in the background. Um, this still don't look right. Hold on, I'm sorry. Okay, that's the producer in me, I guess. Okay, so good to see everybody here. I'm really, really sorry to hear about your mom's illness, Larry. I know what that is like, and that is very, very tough. So you're not hallucinating that you're going to need new, different, and better resources, even than the ones you had to sustain you during this time. And that's going to be an ongoing process, not just for Larry, but probably for some of you too, who are facing new and difficult circumstances in your lives. And even happy stress can throw us off balance. So yeah, we all have to be very mindful of that. And I don't often do this, but I do want to plug this week's Life Writing podcast, which was with Adrienne Marie Brown. If you're not a podcast listener, yeah, we have a podcast, 156 episodes. And Adrienne Marie Brown is a New York Times best-selling author, thinker, visionary, community facilitator. And our podcast on the artist in times of chaos is a must listen. I was thinking about the conversation for hours after we finished talking, and you can find that latest episode. We use Apple Podcasts, so www.lifewritingpodcast.com, or just find it wherever you podcast. And sorry to sound so pitchy, but that's pitchy with a P, but that's I really feel like if you've even seen one or two headlines in the past week, and you have anything remotely like an artist spirit, whether we're enjoying art or creating art, this is a must listen episode of the Life Writing Podcast with Adrienne Marie Brown.
Yeah,
Okay.
also you can go over to our circle, our Life Writing Circle, at www.lifewrite.com, and there will be links to our podcast there. It is a
True.
community where people are able to talk to each other. We can go more deeply into these things if you have comments, questions, requests in any of the four basic areas that we deal with: body, emotions, money, and art. Or body, love, body, heart, emotions, art, however you want to look at it. But those are the four things that we really deal with most deeply in this philosophy and in this podcast and on this show and over on our site. How can you, in the midst of the chaos of life, be the best person you can be, escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service? That's the goal. So, the first thing that we like to do is to everybody unmute yourselves and say hi. Let's start with the energy of the day. That's as important.
Hey
Hi,
We are connected.
everybody.
We're a
everybody!
family.
Hi,
Hello.
hi.
Hello. Hi
Yeah,
everybody.
Hello.
Everybody.
this
Hello.
is the positive corner of the internet that you've been looking for. We will never drain you. We will never tell you that you can't do it. I'm almost annoying in that sense. I remember the writer Ed Bryant.
Never. Why are you
uh,
laughing so hard, Megan? I know why I'm laughing.
yeah, Ed Bryant, a wonderful science fiction writer, passed away a few years ago, called me obnoxiously exuberant, and so I'll own that because I could not afford to be negative. That I could, like I said, I could see that my issues in my career, my ability to create the life that I wanted to, was not being limited by my own ability. Whatever my ability was, what was clear was that I was running uphill through obstacles, and that the grade would not level out sufficiently to be relatively fair from my point of view. I could see for a generation or two. I could see that in 1982. So one of the things that I knew I was going to need was an absolutely unquenchable belief that it was possible. It's like, how do I keep my heart alive for 30 years? How do I do that? And in that sense, I'm a mutant. I don't totally understand why it is that I was able to do it. I just know that I did, and I'm doing as much as I can to sort of reverse engineer that. And what I always like to do here is to talk a little bit about something and then to open the floor for your questions about that or your discussion of what's going on in your life right now. I like to actually workshop this stuff. I like to be a scientist about this stuff. And that means that I observe a phenomenon, I formulate a hypothesis to test that that theory, that notion, I perform experiment to test the hypothesis. If I like the results, then I publish and allow other people to perform their own experiments. So the primary notion is that the doorway to all this stuff is not through your head. Your head will chase ideas around in a circle, garbage in, garbage out. But our bodies are connected directly to actual reality. So every profound discipline on the planet virtually uses the breathing, because all you have to do is hold your breath for about 30 seconds and you'll get in touch with the meaning of life. People worry about what's the meaning of life. It's to get the next breath. I mean, really, it's the question after that that's complicated. After if the meaning of life is the same as the definition thereof, to breathe and to reproduce and to eat and exchange energy with your environment and all the things that define a living thing. Once you can see that, then the next question is all the philosophies of the world. Who am I? What is true? How shall we live together? What is the best way for us to live together? Those are all fantastic questions, and every adult should be engaged with them. But that first thing, if you want endless motivation, all you have to do is to believe that the thing that you want to accomplish will make it easier to breathe. The thing you want to accomplish will decrease pain and increase joy. If you believe that, you'll take action. I do not believe in lazy people. I believe in people who do not clearly see how their actions today will move the needle and get them away from pain and toward pleasure. You can actually see the clarity in someone with the frequency with which they perform a particular behavior. If you're eating graham crackers every day, that's because you believe that graham crackers are going to make you happy. Eating that graham cracker is going to make you happier than not eating it. If you watch a television show, if you do this, if you do that, those are the arenas in which you have clarity. If you're not getting off the couch to do something, those are the arenas in which you do not have clarity. Or there's one slight exception. It's not really an exception, kind of a corollary. You can get caught up in an emotional rhythm. That it's like running downhill. You know that you should stop running downhill, but you're afraid of stopping because then you're going to tumble. Even if you're running toward a cliff, sometimes it's like you're just motor set to continue. So the process of persuading people to do things involves getting rapport with them and then breaking that rhythm so that they have a chance to kind of say, what's going on? And breaking that rhythm, that's what you do when you breathe 5 times a day. So it's like the first thing I want people to do to be able to coach you is set your smartwatch, set your smartphone to go off at the top of the hour. Stop and breathe for 60 seconds. Deep, slow, diaphragmatic breathing. If you will do that single thing, I can coach you. If you can't do that single thing, then you have identified an arena in which you could put all of your effort right there and get a huge amount of change. So I would put everything behind taking that first step if I believed that the person who I was trying to learn from was sincere. If they had the results in their own life, they'd help other people to get those results. I would say, I've got to find a way to make this single change, to take 5 minutes a day that belongs to me, no matter how much of a support system I am for other people. In fact, the more of a support system you are for other people, the easier it is to justify taking that time for yourself. Megan said, don't run downhill. What is this? What did Megan say? It can ruin your knees. Yeah. However, it also increases your speed. So people who aim at health do not run downhill. Running uphill is much better. People who are looking for performance will often run downhill to increase their speed. You can increase your speed tremendously. And so that is very useful. So if warrior activities often select for fitness over health, for performance over health. And that's just the reality of it. It's like, my family will die if I'm not fast in 6 weeks because I must fight for my family's survival. You don't worry about how your knees are going to feel in 20 years. You're going to be concerned with being able to fight in 6 weeks. So this is when you take a look at athletes who are doing insane things for performance. That's what they call Achilles' choice. A short, glorious life or a long, dull one. And athletes today make some similar choices. And in fact, in performance, in any number of different arenas, we temporarily, hopefully temporarily, make a sacrifice to the health in order to perform. We don't see our family as much as we should because we're working late at the office. We're pushing ourselves physically because we're gonna step in the ring, and we know that our opponent is up at 5 o'clock in the morning running, so we're gonna get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and run. There are things that happen like that. There are times when we push our hearts, when we push our bodies, when we push our minds. We're studying for to pass to get our doctorate. So we're working in a hospital, insane hours, 20 hours a day for weeks at a time. We're passing a gauntlet in that sense. It's dangerous full time, but short term, we kind of have to do that from time to time. Anyway, as you can see, that I see an interesting comment and I'll wander off because one of my coaches, Scott Sonnen, said that it's important in life to not just train for your sport or for your fitness activity. You train for the moments in which your body exceeds the healthy patterns. In other words, you have to reach further, you have to move faster, you have to lift more, you have to do something at an awkward angle. If you train too much within very specific patterns, you can develop levels of strength that you cannot apply. So, instance, working a machine for strength, you can lift more on a machine than you can with free weights. And you can lift more with a barbell. It's like you can lift more on a machine than you can with a barbell. You can lift more with a barbell than you can with dumbbells. You can lift more with dumbbells than you can with kettlebells because each of them has a different level of instability. However, being able to lift 100 pounds that is very unstable is more useful in life than lifting 200 pounds that's up and down on a machine, because there are very few times in life that you do that. The same thing is true with your emotions. You are specifically training when you meditate, things like that. You're specifically training yourself to be able to stay calm in the midst of chaos. It's useless if you only get that centeredness when you're sitting in a cave on the top of a mountain. What you need is, can you stay calm when someone cuts you off on the freeway? Can you stay calm when your boss is screaming at you? When your kids need you at 3 o'clock in the morning, can you stay calm then? It's the same as wanting money. You don't just want enough money to pay your bills. You want enough money so that in emergency situations, you can exceed your ordinary bounds, but not fall apart, or to be able to help people, or enough money that you can tell your boss to screw himself if you have to walk away from that job. People who aim at just enough get wiped out at times as soon as the situation gets worse, or the situation gets bad, which it always does. It always does. There are always times of greater peace, and there are always times of greater stress. And if your family is going to be safe and your dreams are going to be safe, you have to train yourself to for the moments at which you excel your ordinary guidelines, when you're scribbling outside the lines, when life tells you no, it pushes you, how long does it take you to get back to balance? That's going to be, in life, they pay you for how much stress you can take without breaking. That's just the truth. So you need to specifically prepare yourself for that. It's not fair or unfair, it just is. So let me take a look at something here. Well, the first thing was I just wanted to say something. It was just kind of interesting, and I'll put it on the screen. Bum, bum, bum. Video. Oh, share. That's what I want. I want to share. All right. So on a group on Facebook that was discussing male maturity in the Black community, because as I've said, I'm very interested in helping 100,000 Black American families close the wealth gap. So I'm thinking a lot about how to do that, how to do that, how to do that. I was asked for life advice, and what I said was to have clear goals for health and fitness, love, money, and art. Then find elders who have solved those puzzles and follow their directions. The greatest tragedy in that community, in our community, is 14-year-olds trying to learn how to be men by listening to 16-year-olds. And I was kind of happy that people responded to that well, because that's not always the case. I'm constantly, because I feel like I'm creating, the vehicle that I'm creating to try to do that healing in terms of the wealth gap. First I have to ask myself the question, why does the wealth gap exist? What are the behaviors and the attitudes and so forth that stop it? For instance, if you tell people to balance their checkbooks to get out of debt, most people will only think about saving money, cutting expenses. It's very interesting. There are two ways to do it. You can either cut expenses, or you can increase the amount of money that you make. Hold expenses steady and increase the amount of money you make. And very few people think that way. It's kind of interesting how few people think that way. So I keep trying to boil this stuff down, because like next week, next Tuesday, we have a potentially life-changing conversation that's going to be happening with a variety of networks. And if that conversation bears out, it's like I said, it's one of those life-changing things, a thread of action that Tananarive and I have been following for months now is about to pay off, because we think we've got a very good chance of good things will happen. That is exceeding the ordinary guidelines. That's exceeding the ordinary boundary. That's coloring outside the lines. It will be a level of success that neither of us has ever had. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that responsibly? How do you make it deepen who you are? This is not a joke. People routinely sabotage their own success because the success is suddenly larger than their image of themselves. It's like if you've never known anyone who made a ton of money and was still a good human being, there's a very good chance you have some bad attitudes about money. If you've never known anyone who lost weight and kept it off healthfully, there's a very good chance you don't know how to do that. If you don't know anyone who's ever had a healthy, loving relationship, chances are very good that on some level you don't even believe it's possible. And if you've never known anyone who succeeded in the arts, it's very possible that on some level you feel like, I can't do this. It's not possible to do it. It's especially not possible to do it and support my family. So, what we're doing here on life writing, which is basically applying the tools of writing to life. So you're designing your life as if you're the hero of a story that you're writing. And so I wanted some quantifiable standards, and this is difficult, and I have not reached the end of this by any means, but I may have a beginning of it. So let's take a look at each of those areas. Up here. Okay, physically, let's just look, we're not looking at health, which is far more complicated than weight, but weight can be an aspect of health. And so if you can master this, you have clarity as far as I'm concerned. And there you go to the physics. You stay out of the biology and the physiology and the neuroendocrinology and the psychology and the sociology of it, and just look at the fact that if you burn more calories than you take in, you'll lose weight. It's just look at the physics of it. This is simple, but it is not easy. All sorts of stuff makes this very difficult, makes it very complicated. And I don't deny that at all. But you have to start with that basic truth or you're lost. So that's body. In relationships, the blessing dance and the love feast kind of suggests something. It can't quite be quantified, but hopefully you can use whatever subjective standards work for you. Give in relationships. Give more than you take. A relationship is a place where you go to share your love. If the person you are with does not even try to reciprocate, you know it's time to leave. Because what you're looking for is to be in a relationship with someone else who comes to the relationship to give more than they get. When two people who are there are both there to give more than they get, they're going to have a great time. And that's what you want to look for. Because that is joyful. You get to wake up every morning just thinking, how can I make my family happy? Because you know that your family will support you. If a lot of people will not give back because they're afraid that if they give too much, they won't have anything left. So if you give to them without demanding in return, you create a context in which it is easier for them to open up and give. And if they do not respond, then in 90 days, you'll know. If the love feast is about, for 90 days, putting the other person's happiness above your own. I've done it for over a year and a half now, every 90 days, renewing it. And there are times when I forget it. There are times when, that's my true north. That's where I come back to. And because Tananarive is the kind of person that wants to give and was looking for a relationship in which she could give, we work together. Okay. The third thing is the mind. And it's that thing about spend less than you earn, invest the rest, invest a chunk of the difference. It's simple, but it's not easy. But I can tell you something. It's a lot more fun to increase income than it is to pinch pennies. And most people will just think about pinching pennies. That's what they will do because they have a ceiling on how much money they think they can earn. So if you keep your expenditures the same and you put all your attention into how can I earn more money, which is a matter of increasing the value of the product or service or increasing your networking, increasing the number of customers that you bring in, the number of people you know who might conceivably need what it is that you have. So that's money. And then there's art. And the life writing process says write a sentence every day, right? So that works. I've got clarity on that because I've published 4 million words. It's like, oh, okay, that gives you clarity. And so if you write every day and you read more than you write, that's a calculus that works pretty decently. It's not perfect, but it works pretty decently. And it's the beginning of a conversation. So if you can accept these 4 things, or effectively challenge them, then there is a conversation to be had. If I have to keep calories in, below calories out. How do I measure how many calories I'm expending? What happens when my metabolism starts shutting down because I reduced my dietary input so much that my body thinks I'm starving and now it's shut down. How do I keep that from happening? How do I exercise most efficiently? It takes 7 hours to burn 1 pound of fat. Approximately 3,500 calories. That's not a calculus I want to get into. But there's this other thing. I can actually jack up my metabolism by doing X. I can do this, I can do that. And you have to set it up so that it is long term. Any plan that you're on has to be long term, which means you're probably going to have to shift your identity, who it is that you feel like you are. Because as long as you're fighting that, you're not going to be able to find love. You're not going to be able to lose weight. You're not going to be able to make money. Giving more than you take in relationships. How do you love yourself enough to believe that you're worth the very best? How do you learn to detect predators, sociopaths, people who will hurt you? How do you begin to detect wounds? How do you heal people? What if I've got a lot of wounds and I'm with somebody else who has a lot of wounds and we want to help each other heal? How do we do that? Those conversations can all be had. They really are. But first, you have to kind of accept the basics. So I will keep working on trying to define what are those basics so that we've got a floor to stand on as we begin to move forward. With me, in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have another opportunity to find out who the hell I am. Can I go to these pitch meetings, be the very best I can be? Can I lift up my partners so that we're a family, we're all supporting each other? How do I continuously bring the very best? If this is the chance that I should have had 30 years ago and I'm getting it now, how do I protect my energy? Hollywood runs on energy. I've got to have more energy than the 25-year-olds that they're ordinarily dealing with. How do I do that? How do I do this? How do I do that? All of those questions can be answered if you start by being unafraid of the truth. Remember the three gates, which is a core part of what we're talking about. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it useful? It is my statement that if you start with the three gates, that being honest and kind and always looking at what is the most efficient and effective way to accomplish this will get you all the way to anywhere you want to go. So, that was a big chunk. I like big chunks. I like big chunks and I cannot lie. Anyway, now, so Tananarive, if you're there, if there's anything, because I can just prattle on about this stuff endlessly, because I'm very careful to spend at least an hour every single day inputting positives into my life, because I've got the same fear as anybody else has. But sweetheart, do you have any reactions to anything that I said?
Um, yes, I think. I also input positives in my life, and I think positives are different for different people first thing in the morning. My therapist recently suggested that I stop listening to Rachel Rodgers on my morning walk, honey, because she knows Rachel Rodgers' work very well, and it's often goal and task oriented. And she said for my very first ritual in the morning, like what I should just be free flowing, just like listening to an audiobook or listening to my own work from the night before on voice dream, or just even more emptied out than I was. And then so that's recalibrating because I was having some stressors where my usual rituals weren't working as well. And I was telling her, yeah, I did this and I did that. And and she ran me through all the paces of what I was doing for my morning ritual. And she stopped me on, you're don't go to work so fast. Just you don't have to go to work immediately. Just do what else, other things that might empty you out. This is the first time I mentioned this, honey. I meant to mention it to you in a meeting, but I guess I'm just telling you in front of all these people. And aside from that, it's really finding the tools that help diminish stress. I'm literally about to post on Life Writing on Circle, which the link to join is in the chat, about the fact that I put myself on a page quota. And I don't know what your equivalent of that is, but a page quota is a notion that is not fun or sexy sounding. It sounds scary, it sounds annoying. But I found that I have a May 1st deadline, and it was stressing me more, wondering if I had enough time to finish the book. So what was less stressful was math. I have this many days. I probably have this many pages. How many pages would I have to write per day to get to this deadline? Oh, 4. Okay, that's not a small amount, but it's not impossible. That's well within the range of what I can do when I'm focused. So for me, trying to come up with and I had a chart up for the reformatory. Steve remembers, like I look at like the number of pages I wrote per day, and I'm not prescribing this for everybody. This is not something I'm saying you need to do as a practice, but when you get to the point where it's more stressful not to do it. It's more stressful not to have the quota. It's more stressful not to have even the chart on your wall. That's how desperately I'm not going to put a chart on my wall this time. I don't need it. I've been working great on this book. My last book took 7 years. That's why I had a chart on the wall. So you don't have to take it too far, but if it would de-stress, demystify. I think one of the things that stresses is how, like for me, it was like the mystery. Oh my, do I have enough time to finish the book? Why ask yourself that question when you can solve that mystery for yourself? So just learn to recognize when your old practices need tweaking, which is something I'm experimenting with in my morning ritual. And in terms of your organization of your time, your emotional resources, try to recognize those moments when you're out of your depth. Maybe you're doing the breathing, it's not working. So what more? Well, I knew I needed to take up drumming 2025. I just got my amp, so the whole family is hearing me now. But I knew I would need more to deal with 2025 than what I had in the past. So what more do you need to move toward, as someone was saying in chat, that uncertain future? That is scary. There are some of those things we cannot control, that uncertainty outside. But as much as possible, how can we create more certainty and more comfort and better rituals in our daily lives?
Absolutely. I want people to raise their hands, but I want to deal, with their questions. But I wanted to say before you sign off, T, or before we lose your spotlight, is that it's so much fun to hear you play the drums and play the piano because I know my baby is in her bliss. I think that
I'm
that is a beautiful gift that you're giving yourself.
I'm glad you feel that way.
It's true. I do.
Hey, that's love,
Okay.
people. For someone with a beginning drummer in the house to be like, I love hearing you play your drum.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's like hearing the cats playing in the middle of the night. There's one part of me that says, "Oh, they're playing." Another part of me that says, "They're healthy kitties." You know what I'm saying? It's you go to the root of it. Anyway, I wanted to
Bill
deal.
is asking if those are noise canceling headphones you're wearing. No, he's listening because it's when he's watching TV, even. I'm playing the
Yeah,
drums in the other room while I'm watching
that's
TV.
right.
So that's real.
Doesn't
That's real
doesn't
support.
bother me at all. I've got
Thank you, love. I'm gonna
I've
go.
got
I'm
this.
gonna let people
Yeah, you
in.
go because
All right.
I want to deal with what Jim Schubert said. How do we set goals for any distance in the future when the future is so chaotic right now? The future isn't even here. Jim Schubert, raise your hand. Let's talk. Let's get in here. Jim Schubert, where is Jim? There he is. Okay, can you turn your camera on, Jim? Jim, did you want to turn your camera on? Maybe he doesn't want to turn his camera on, or maybe he's not able to. That's okay. So, the meaning of life is to escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. We've said that. All right. So, what does that mean? In life, pain is non negotiable, suffering is negotiable. Suffering is hanging on to pain from the past or allowing yourself to be afraid of things that have not happened. There's a lot to go into here, but life is in the present. So the only time you're suffering is when you're not in the present. But all that there is of life is in the present. So literally, you are missing your life. If we die, if we're going to die tomorrow, let's say that we knew the world was ending tomorrow. What makes sense is having a good time today, isn't it? You make sure that you're doing the things that you love, you're with the people that you love, you're moving forward. And then the world ends tomorrow. The world is always going to end at some point. That's just life. If it doesn't end tomorrow, then if you had a good day today, then you have another good day tomorrow. And if there is no solution, then you've still figured out more and more about how to be happy within what you're doing. Nelson Mandela could be in a cell for decades and come out stronger than he went in. You look at the fact that there are certain things that there are no solutions for, external solutions. You're going to die. What then? But what then is you live as good as possible up until that moment. But if there is a solution, and there usually is, you take a look at all the times, people have been saying the world is going to end since the world began. And there are always problems, but the people who can solve those problems are the ones who did not get paralyzed by fear. The people who can solve the problems are the ones who believed in the future and thought about ways that we might be able to profitably act within the constraints that we have. And every human problem that we've had has had some people putting their heads in the sand saying the world is ending, and other people saying, no, we can work this out. We can figure it out. There's a way. There's a way. There's a way. I say that you start developing the muscle that says there is a way. I don't know how to do this yet. I see no answer, but let me study more deeply. If you're committed to being one of the ones who makes a difference, then you cannot run around in a circle like a chicken with its head cut off. You have to be one of the ones that the chickens with their heads cut off can follow to safety. Well, they're already dead. Their heads cut off. Let's say blind chickens. Let's say panicked chickens. Don't be one of those. Your commitment has to be a safe space, or the children are not safe. So the real question is, what are you going to do? If you are taking care of yourself every day, if your primary thing, I say your primary thing, is to take care of yourself and your family. Taking care of yourself means take a look at those 4 major areas. What are you doing to strengthen your body? Because, fatigue makes cowards of us all. Energy, on the other hand, makes us heroes. The more energy you have, the less fear you're going to feel. The less fear is going to stop you. Fear might create a barrier 6 feet high, but you have so much energy, you can jump 8 feet. There's another factor. You only feel fear when you are not taking action. As soon as you start taking action, the fear starts diminishing. And the more you get into flow state with the action you take, the less fear you feel. You can get to the point where you're so immersed in the moment. People can do that, play a game of chess before they're going to be executed. They're going to be executed in the morning, but they're so involved in playing chess that they're not feeling fear about that. They're caught up in this, in pawn, in king, and bishop. So this is, of course, why people get caught up in trivial things, watching too much television, reading fantasy books, things that we all like to do, drugs and alcohol and so forth, because it cuts off tomorrow and yesterday and just puts you in the moment. So yeah, that's a solution, but the best solution is to be so involved in something that you go into flow state with it. So now you're not suffering, but you have carefully designed the activity so that doing this thing actually improves your life. Now you are taking your fear, you can take your fear and use it to motivate action. And that action is designed to solve the situation so that you produce less fear. For instance, a concrete example of this is that because of childhood bullying, I had a phobic response to sparring. I was good at it, but I could not, going to the school to spar felt like I was marching in to be executed. It felt horrible. Whereas the other guys at the school were just athletes. They were just looking for a chance to shoot hoops, metaphorically. I was being marched in front of the firing squad. If I had taken that emotion, hung up a heavy bag in my backyard, and envisioned the black belts at my school who terrified me, and then beat the hell out of that heavy bag using the emotion of the fear, not only would I have gone into flow state and therefore avoided the fear, but by pushing if I exercise beyond 12 to 15 minutes of steady state activity, I would also go into second wind, which would create a cascade effect in terms of some interesting endocrinological things in the body that teaches you how to deal with fear in a healthier way. It actually trains your body to deal with the emotion in a healthy way. That's an entirely different subject. But simultaneously, I also would have enveloped more skill. I would have been faster, I would have been stronger, and the next time I went to school, I would have noticed myself, I wasn't getting the hell beat out of me without getting a couple licks in myself. And then eventually you'd be about as good as the other people in the class. And then one day you'd be one of the best because you were taking your fear. So in terms of the chaos in the world, we know that we can't predict what's going to happen, but we also know the nature of the kind of personality that tends to survive anything. They tend to be optimistic. They believe in the future. They have energy. They're creative. They're balanced. They keep a sense of humor. So what you do is look at the kind of person who tends to survive. The kind of person who throughout human history, not only they survive, but their families survive. And they come out of it better than they went into it, but they never lost their humanity. Research these people. I could tell you anything that I could talk all day long about what I think about this, but it will be through observation. Who survived the concentration camps? Read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. What attitudes help people survive slavery? What attitudes allowed people to survive the worst things that have ever happened to humanity? You will find certain things that are in common between these people. Those lessons are what you want to give your children, and what you want to share with your neighbors, and what you want for the maintenance and preservation of your own soul and heart. So the question was, how do we set goals for any distance in the future? The future is so chaotic right now. Your goal is to be the strongest that you've ever been. Start with your physicality. Start with saying, I'm going to get into the best shape of my life. And you aim at that. I'm going to run it. By the end of the year, I'm going to one walk at 5K or whatever it is. That will be your next level that would force you to look at that. Because if you change your body, you will always change your emotions and your mind. Whereas you just try to think your way through this stuff, it'll run around in a circle like a rat in a can, and it's awful. So your conscious mind is not the tool for this job. Survival stress has to be worked out in the body. All right, I'm going to remove this. And now I would love for people who, either think I just spat wisdom or Steve is completely full of shit. Whatever it is that you're thinking, raise your hand, talk about what's going on in your life, challenge me, add things. And remember, volunteer or you will be voluntold. I am looking. I see people right now who don't want me calling on them that I'm about to call on. So, so somebody raise your hand and save them. No? Okay, Latanya.
I knew it. I knew you were going to call
You
on
were
me.
right. Yes, absolutely. Your instincts are getting good.
Well,
What's up,
I'm
sweetheart?
I'm late to the party, first of all, because I couldn't find the link and all that stuff. So I didn't hear everything that you imparted. So I just got the tail end of it. But I will share uh I guess some successes for the week because my
Please.
challenge for me
Great.
is and I love this. I'm just so thankful to have found you all and rediscovered you, etc. I
And
did
we
work
need
on my,
you. We
oh,
actually need you. It matters.
thank you.
Every single one of you matters. And what you're doing for each other in chat is more important than what I'm doing here. What you're doing in your life is more important than this. I'm so grateful to be able to contribute. And now I will shut up. What's going on?
No, thank you. Well, I did work. Now, this is me not having done almost anything. I can't even remember the last time I really committed to my writing. I'm really out of practice, everything. So this has really been inspirational for me
Superb.
because I recognize that I have to create. This is the way it is. So I have my shadow job during the day, that gets me survive. I can survive. But I worked on my piece that I hope to submit to you all.
Can't
And
wait.
yeah, and I'm challenged because I have a chronic health condition and
Okay.
it saps my energy. I have a very stressful leadership role type job. So that's been my challenge. But I'm just trying to make it work. So even if I don't necessarily write, I've been thinking about my story, which is a new groove that I'm just embracing because what you
Well,
all
if you
share,
know,
yeah.
let's say that your energy is half of what you'd like it to be. Okay. Luckily, you don't have to write very much to be a writer. One sentence a day. Put all of your energy behind that one sentence because what you don't know is how much of the resistance is emotional, how much of it is physiological due to whatever you're dealing with, how much of it is cognitive in terms of executive function, being able to literally plan your time and so forth and so on. You don't know what that is. But by reducing the number of things you have to do to the smallest number, where it's obvious anybody can write a sentence a day, now look at, but you know something? I still didn't do it. What was stopping me? And now it's like flipping over the flat rock and you get to see your beliefs and your values and your clarity and all that stuff. If you love yourself, and that's where you need to start by loving yourself, adoring that little girl inside you, because she is the source of all your creativity. She's why you're doing this. If you can absolutely love her, then you can forgive her for not being perfect. Perfection in that sense is a verb, not a noun. It's not a, it's it's not a thing, it's a process. I am perfecting myself. Okay. And so you have a leadership position, which means that people are looking up to you. You need to provide guidance. So that's going to trigger your imposter voices. If they only knew that I'm just as insecure as they are, if they're like the blah, 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 blah. And once you realize that everyone you ever admired also has those same voices in their head, those voices never go away. They never go away. There is never a time on any project I'm working on, even after 4 million words of published work, the voice in my head that says this is garbage. There's, you got nothing. At one point in my life, when I was younger, it was like, you don't have it. And now it's the voice that says you've lost it. There's no point at which it's just okay. That's that's not that's not authentic. Authenticity is warts and all, insecurity and all. So so you're right where you need to be. And the things that you are dealing with are the exact things that the people you're leading are dealing with. So everything you learn and everything you do is what really makes you a leader. Because all there is to mastery is masters are always learning, they're always doing, and they're always sharing. Does that not sound like an alimentary canal? Does that not sound like just the digestive system of an animal? You take it in, you do something with it, in waste products. And I'm not saying that what you teach is shit, but it is, it's an analogy.
And I
So
feel like I've gotten with the leadership, I took a leadership seminar that helped me to really step
good.
into my
What did you
authenticity as
learn?
a
What was the
leader,
most important thing you learned?
but that I know what the heck I'm doing, that I really do know what I'm doing and to honor what I've accomplished in this
Wow. You
role.
mean you
It
actually
transformed
are
it for
that
me.
bitch?
Yeah. Yep, I was able to go, I am that, I was able to
Yeah,
do
I
that.
am that
Sure.
bitch.
But
That,
but
absolutely.
but now it's doing that for myself as a writer. That's because that's the lifeblood. I'm like that artist who isn't practicing their art, and it have, I can't do
Well,
that to
you've
myself
done,
anymore.
look, the magic formula suggests that you're doing exactly what you need to do. You found mentors for all of our imperfections, for all of our flaws, for all the fact that there's a ton of stuff we have not accomplished in our lives. Tanana and I are the real deal. We actually are that bitch. We actually are on that road. We've actually done that. Okay. So you're not mistaken about that. That does not mean that everything we say is going to apply to you. It means that to the degree that we are trying to be as honest and open as we can be, we're describing the territory we're passing through. So if you'd like to travel similar territory, we're giving you a map. That doesn't give you a car. It doesn't give you the gas. It doesn't do the driving for you. But we can offer you good maps. The action you're taking, if you will just do one sentence a day, you're on the path. Okay. The G, the gratitude. Gratitude is the antidote for your fear, because gratitude is the doorway to faith. If you're grateful for what you already have, it is easier to develop faith that tomorrow can be better than yesterday. And once you have that, then it's just, let me do today's work. I'm not going to worry about what happens tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about finishing the story. I'm just going to keep working on the story. Today, this is what I love, right? I could die before the story is published. I could die before the story is finished. So I will take my joy. And this is another day in which I said, who am I? And I answered with action. Ask every day, who am I? And answer that with your actions.
I hear
You're
that.
doing that, okay? And then clear goal, you want to have this story finished by when? When do you want to have this
This
story finished?
weekend, honestly, so I can get
Ooh,
it to you all. Because I
fantastic.
already started it. I haven't finished it.
Well, that's fantastic. So you have a goal. So that goal then allows you to say, well, how much work would I have to do? What would I have to do every day? What does it take for me to motivate myself to do that? And let yourself be kind of a scientist,
Mhm.
observing, but remember that it's the little girl part of you that is actually creating the art. So be kind, be compassionate, love her. If it was just scribbling on paper and she says, "Look at what I did," you love her. It's beautiful, because you know that the first unsteady steps will eventually turn into Flojo, will eventually turn into a magnificent running machine. But those first steps wobble. When we get to be adults, we no longer let ourselves wobble. If it's worth doing badly at first. Okay. So the clarity of your intent, I say, is you want to finish and publish a story by the end of the year. Let's say that's your intent.
More than one,
Okay. That's fine. Nothing wrong with
hopefully.
that at all. So if you do that, then every day give yourself a little time to study how do productive publishing writers think about it. And at that little piece of the puzzle, once again, Tanariv and I can offer you that. We can get you published. We can actually provide a framework in which every single person who's followed that framework has been published. It's not that hard. Actually building a career is a lot harder. And then being able to make enough money to do really well demands other skills as well. We can point you in directions, but that is definitely a higher level. But just getting published, you can do that. I have total confidence that you can do that. You follow our directions and reach, you can't, no one who has followed our directions has gotten past story 26 without publishing. Not a single person. So if you look at that and say, 26, I can do that, then you already win. You have stepped into the role of being a writer. You're doing what a writer needs to do. You're handling your job, you're helping people, and you're also writing. So that thing of, body, I want to know, what are you doing for your body to take care of yourself physically, to anchor you to the earth? At the very least, do the breathing. At the very least, do the breathing. What are you doing for your heart to connect with that little girl inside you? Probably the art is part of it, but be sure that you're loving yourself. Be absolutely sure of that. Okay. How are you handling your money? You've got a job. So the one thing that I would strongly suggest is that you save some percentage of that 1%, 0.1%. I don't care. It's the building of the habit that makes the difference. And you put it into some sort of really secure investment that you have no plans to touch until much later in your life or the next generation even. That's like a psychological. And then in terms of your art, you've got that handled. So allow me to ask you, what are you doing for yourself physically?
Uh, it's I'm on the journey to being consistent. I try to at
Okay.
least stretch if I do nothing else. But the breathing, I got to remember that. I got to write myself like a note to get
Now
that
he
into my
said,
routine.
put it on your cell phone.
Yeah, yeah.
Do an hour, a 60-minute countdown timer, and when it goes off, breathe and reset it. Simple as that. Or you could set a 3-hour countdown timer and do it once every 3 hours.
Hmm.
As long as you do it a minimum of 5 times a day, you're on the path, and I can coach you. But that is both a matter of learning how to deal with stress better, improving your executive function, and demonstrating self-love. That you care about yourself enough to be sure that the world does not steal all your time and energy from you. Because the world will take everything that is not nailed down. The world, they will
Yes,
not
I've
stop.
learned that the
And
hard
it's,
way.
yes, and it's not even the world's fault. If you leave a pork chop on the table, the dog is going to grab the pork chop. It's not the dog. The dog is just being a dog. It's your fault for leaving the pork chop there. By the time you have been an adult longer than you were ever a child, you can no longer blame your childhood. This is your responsibility now. So if you come here, every time you come here, we're going to be reminding you that you are that bitch. Because sometimes a bitch is what you have to be in order to tell people, no, I will protect myself.
Can I share that I did that today? Not in the bitch mode, but very firm because I already arranged to have Fridays as my remote day and or day off. So when my boss, who happens to be my stepfather, so there's that whole dynamic of family, said, "Well, are you coming to the office today?" I said, "No, I hadn't planned on it." I just left it there, left it
Yeah.
there because we already arranged, so I'm guarding that time, being
So that's a matter of the C in the magic formula. That's your core in alignment with your true self. And one of the things that is true about your true self is you have the right to survive. You have to start with the fact that you have the right to survive. You have the right to breathe, okay? And that if someone tries to interrupt that process, you have the right to bite. If you don't have that, the world will take everything that you are and give you nothing back. Okay? Glad
yes,
to see
thank
you.
you.
You betcha.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's so much fun. You have a great smile. So over in chat, share more of your story. Jim Schubert.
Well, hello.
Hello.
It's
Jim disappeared again. I need to find him. Jim Schubert. Jim, raise your. Oh, there you are. There he is. Okay,
oh
Jim,
my goodness,
talk to me.
that's so disturbing to see myself like that.
Ah,
Well, on the theme of perfectionism and partly triggered by what Latanya was talking about, um, I'm also the one that is having trouble setting the longer term goals. But what I do
yes.
instead is just set I would, I like what you pointed out, but
Now,
I
what you
set
do
the
here's what
1%
you do.
improvement instead.
Your ultimate goal is, to escape suffering, embrace joy, be of service. So I've set a new goal of lifting 100,000 black families, closing the wealth gap. You can set a goal of helping 100 people or writing a book or finishing a marathon or whatever it is. But you want ultimate lifetime goals, how you want to look at your life when you're on your deathbed, a 3-year goal, a 1-year goal, 6-month goal, et cetera, et cetera. Then ultimately you get down to just, well, what does tomorrow need to be? And then what do I need to do today to be on that process? And all you have to do is take care of today. If you take care of today, tomorrow will take care of itself, as long as you're aligned properly. So go ahead. Go ahead.
The Related to what Latanya was talking about, the finishing part. I had a friend that's has been. I live in Canada. She's been living in the States. She's moving back
Oh,
to
lucky
Canada.
you.
Yeah.
Let's
Um,
not go there. Anyway.
fair enough. She's moving back to Canada and starting a production company. She's done
Hmm,
film work in the past, and it has a couple of short films that she's actually getting me to do voice work for.
how nice.
And in the past, we had worked in the IT industry together, and I had mentioned an idea I had for a story. a screenplay. And she really liked the idea. And she has now asked me, because she's forming a production company, if I will write that for her. But she also wants to see two scripts that I had written. I optioned two screenplays back in the mid 90s. The problem is I hated the act three of both of them. So I tore out act three. So they're now two 70-page scripts, basically. And I really, when I looked back at them, I really like what I wrote. I think I did a really good job. But I'm having trouble getting myself to think of any kind of way of writing an ending, a new ending, that my perfectionism is kicking in. It's like, yeah, it's
What
just
is the
not going to be a good
genre?
ending.
No, no, no.
Uh,
The way you, well, first of all, the way you come up with a good idea is to have a lot of bad ideas. Nobody has to see your first draft.
Good point.
It's like, so it's like, try it. Do you don't like it? You didn't like it? Okay, throw it away. Let's do it again. And what you got was you got to spend a lot of time writing, which is the fun thing anyway. So, you know, anyway, so what genre is it?
it would be mostly an action genre
Most of the
of
action genre. Okay.
the one that she
Nothing wrong with
wants me
that.
to write. The new idea is sort of a mental health it's the man with one red shoe kind of concept of fish out of water kind of thing. It's the basic premise is somebody who's suicidal, but the he's being interrogated and they think he's not suicidal. They think he's just super trained, and
Well, I
then
mean,
sort of what goes from
do
there.
you have any kind of a sense of how do you want the audience to feel when they walk out of the theater?
I did. I get a little confused because I sort of I vacillate between a couple of ways I want them to feel.
Okay.
One sort of one way when I was originally thinking about it, the way I wanted them to feel was sort of oh my God, I didn't realize it was like that. We have to change things. And the second way is a little bit more like, wow, that was a lot of fun.
Okay, so what I suggest to you is on the surface, you want them to think, wow, this was a lot of fun. What they don't realize is that you've also given them unconscious encouragement to believe that things have to be changed. The carrier tone of fiction is entertainment. As Jerry Pournell told me that your books should be at least as entertaining as a six pack of beer because they cost the same thing. So that's your obligation. If people are entertained, they'll remember what entertained them. You don't necessarily want them thinking about your premise. Not necessarily, because if it's something that has been a sustained problem, it's probably something that people have an investment some people have an investment in leaving the same. So if you're talking to their unconscious minds, great. Stories always have text and subtext. So in terms of that, if you wanted the most entertaining climax that would also say something that you believe is true about human beings in the world, what would that be?
Oh, good Lord. I don't know. That's
Okay. Okay,
I
well, what
don't
is
have
the
a good
problem that you set up in the beginning of the story that you have to pay off? What is the problem?
well, that's and I've been following your stuff for a couple of decades, and it's sort of the Dwight Swain premise kind of idea. Uh, the original approach was that the guy is suicidal and he wants to basically get free in order to finish his intent to end his life.
Okay, so what he wants, the presenting problem, is that he wants to solve an external problem so he can kill himself,
Yes,
right? Okay, but by the end of the story, do you want him to kill himself? Do you want him to kill him, or do you want him to come back into the world and accept the challenge of living?
I want him to learn to accept the challenge of living and learn that it's about pacing
Okay,
himself.
so what is it that he has to change? In other words, the only reason people want to kill themselves is because it feels more painful to live than to die. What would flip that switch? As soon as it feels more painful to die than to live, he'll want to live. So, what is it that he needs to solve within himself or externally that would allow him to see that life contains beauty and joy? Because this is the same thing you need to deal with. You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
If
it
I take
is.
a
You're
look,
right.
how do we set goals for? See, that's why you're actually life writing. You're actually working with your story, trying to ask questions about that. Tananarive just popped up, and she's
I
got
see
something
that.
to say. Unmute yourself, sweetheart.
Oh. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I only jumped in because I have a feeling that it's both of the things that Steve mentioned. It's that thing he needs to solve externally that has a relationship, parallels, reflects, mirrors the thing that he has to solve internally. And it's not that you have to know any of the answers to these questions here on this Zoom, but I think this is a great path Steve is suggesting for you to A, relax and have fun while you figure it out, but also add that focus. What's the visual symbol, I would say, for a screenplay that would really capture that change, that embrace of life, or that throwing off of some burden or whatever it is? Also think about what's the perfect visual symbol to end your movie with?
So what is it that happened in his life that soured him on life? What is it that did it?
That's perhaps the challenging part for putting it in a story format easily is that the premise I'm working with is that he's bipolar. So it's not anything in life. It's that the brain just makes him feel that way sometimes, and he has to learn to deal with it.
So, does medication help?
Well, the real world character that I'm basing him on, it doesn't.
You've got two different possibilities. If the problem is in his neurophysiology, then the right medication would help. If the problem is psychological due to abuse or something, something else, then it would be counseling that does it. Unless your point of view is some people are simply broken and they cannot heal, which is an interesting question, which is an interesting position, in which case you'd say you'd be looking for people who never solved their bipolarity, who still embrace joy in life. If you can find such people, then you can say, well, how do I create an analogy to their solution? Which might be, love. They found someone who accepts them as they are and gives them enough love that even when they're down, they have a safety net. Whatever it is. I mean, Jack Nicholson does not change in As Good as It Gets. He simply makes partnership with a woman who's as damaged as he is, but in a very different way. And together they have a chance of making it. So you want to come up with the best answer you can come up with. Arguably, through studying life, people do heal. Other people do not heal and they die. But you would like to live, and you would like him to live. So is the problem in his brain tissue? Is his problem in his heart? What's the problem? Where's the problem as far as you're concerned? For the way you see him.
Yeah, I think the problem is in his heart. I think that if his heart is in the right place, then he can work with his brain tissue, his brain
So
issues.
what happened to him? So it's things like conflicting beliefs. I had a conflicting belief that if I did not succeed and succeed massively, I would be destroyed by life. But my mother told me that, Steve, if you let white people know how smart you are, they will kill you. And I can make an excellent case that she was not wrong. What do I do with this? How do I do this? Or you must succeed, or I will not love you. And the parent dies before you have a chance to show them your success. That's awful. That's awful. You look at cases where people were able to, with therapy or love, heal that thing, untie that knot, that they started out as a beautiful child who, in a perfect home environment, could have had love and creativity and success. Something went wrong. It might have been passed up the generations. It could be something that they were born in a war zone. It had nothing to do with their parents. It had to do with being raised without parents. So they became kind of feral. And then they found that they had a talent for something, for numbers, and got a corporate job, even though on the inside they're still that feral kid fighting for a scrap of food. There they have two, wolves fighting in their hearts. You have to ask.
Gave me an idea.
Yes, there we go. Okay, good. So you take that idea and you write it. And you keep asking, you keep saying, something, I'd be satisfied with this idea. Let me finish it and see how you feel about it. Because what you're looking for is you start the story with a sense of, I'm just going to write this. But then when you get finished with it the first time, you get to ask, well, how do I want people to feel? What is it that I'm trying to say? What's the subtext here? What's the valuation here? It sounds to me that what you want people to feel is that the world is
Hope.
worth fighting for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hope is the end point, I think.
Now remember, at the core of it, you're asking what is the meaning of life? Because you're saying, well, who am I and what is true, right? At the core of it, the meaning of, I'm suggesting, and you'll have to find your own way, and I try not to say this too often, but it's like, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this is what I believe, and I can state it positively. The meaning of life is the same as the definition of it. It's just the next breath, buddy. It's as simple as that. That's the meaning of life. It's the next question. How shall we live together? How can we deal with suffering? Is there a solution for suffering? All of Buddhism is about, there is suffering in the world. There is a solution for suffering. This is the solution. That's all of Buddhism. Okay. So you get entire, deep, wide, multi-generational centuries of philosophy around the very question that you're asking here. How can we live with joy? How do we do this in the midst of all the chaos? Now, you have a potential answer. You then are forming an argumentation. When you write your first draft, you then get to clarify that answer. I'm saying that what makes this insane life worthwhile is love. That life has no meaning if we cannot love. That becomes your thesis. Your antithesis is there is no such thing as love, or love just makes it worse. Your story then becomes an argumentation between thesis and antithesis. This scene, love is healing. This scene, love is corrosive. Until he remembers, he feels it's corrosive because he witnessed his desperate stepfather beat his mother to death, or something. He brings something up and realizes, I misinterpreted everything I thought. It wasn't my stepfather. It was a prowler who broke into the house, and I was too young to be able to see what was really going on there, or something. You create a simplified world in which there is an answer for the things that are so complicated that you can worry them for a lifetime and not find a clear response because you're not grounding yourself on that core thing. Life is about living. Okay. You make the mistake of thinking that somebody's going to say life is, it's some aphorism that is fancy. Okay. No, it's not more complicated. It's simpler than anybody wants to look at. But the question, how can we live together? That's complicated. And if you can ground yourself on the reality of survival, you then have your feet on solid ground to ask questions about philosophy and kindness, and what would happen with the three gates. That if you were, for instance, to say, something, if we follow the three gates, the world would be a better place. You show an individual human being who is all messed up, who realizes he has not been honest with himself, or he has not been kind to himself. He thought he was this great guy, but truth is, he's cruel because he's afraid, and that's not useful. Suddenly, if you say that, you are making a statement and putting yourself out there. And if that statement is your truth, then you have made a valid contribution to the human conversation. How shall we be? And now your craft is in service of art. That's different.
I can feel it as much more motivating too.
That's right. Because it's now why am I writing this? In order to tell the world who I am in the few years I have to play this game. Why am I doing this? Because I don't want other people to go through the same pain that I have gone through. Why am I doing this? So I can sell a script for $1.2 million. Whatever it is. You pump up the volume, man. You get clarity on why
All
you're
great
doing it.
reasons. All great reasons.
Okay, so you good?
Yes, thank you very much.
And by the way, I would like to say this. I was going to help you before I said this, but if you get into our screenwriting class, which you get it at www.writeawebinar.com, you'd be able to get into 2 months of Life Writing Pro for free. Okay. And in that, you could actually workshop some of your ideas more deeply and you'd be a part of that community. So if you went there, I would recommend that to you, but I will try to never do that before I've helped you for free. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You take care. I've got another hand up there and I want to get into it. Andrea Black.
Hi.
Hello. Hello, Andrea.
Hello. So I made I say I made the mistake, but I made the mistake of choosing a topic and not understand and did not know that we were going to be in this particular political situation. So I am writing a play that is an adaptation on Euripides' Medea, and the lead is black, but I put it in the context of modern day, and it is where Jay is basically within a political context with the same themes of Medea. And I live in North Carolina, and it is in Raleigh, so it's a purple area, but there's still a lot of political stuff happening, and so I find that I'm kind of met with my own fear with this play and kind of blocked.
Okay. So, Tanana Reeve just popped in. That means she's got something to say. Take it away, sweetheart.
Well, I don't know if I'm ready yet, but I understand your fear, especially writing a play, which is all based on a public presentation, which is a little bit different than a short story, which gives you a little bit more distance from it. Um, but the part of me that's the daughter of civil rights activists, you see this poster on my door, Freedom in the Family, is like, write your damn play. Okay. That's the first part of me. But I don't want to dismiss what I understand is a very valid fear. Like I just was researching for my novel in progress back in, I want to call the year 1941. Duke Ellington helped compose a review in Los Angeles called Jump for Joy that was subversive as hell. It talked about wanting to move out of the South where the signs say out to lunch instead of out to lynch. And they got death threats. They took that song out of their show. But they did the show. And I'm still talking about that show in 2025. So I don't think times are worse today than they were in 1941. And I think that your best work is going to be the work that moves you, personally stirs you. And this reimagining of Medea is very important to you. Write it. And then the harder part, yes, mounting it. But I think actually you might find that you get a huge wave of support. It might be the opposite reaction of what you think. Because as we all know, we can't predict 3, 6 months in the future, a year in the future. That seems like a long time. We can't predict. So I think use your tools, meditation and breathing and journaling or whatever your tools are to help address the fear. I'm not dismissing it and I'm not saying it's a bad thing or it's not trying to protect you. But hey, fear, sorry, I'm going to have to work around you on this one, you know? And you may end up creating the best work of your lifetime. I mean, frankly, my book coming out now is super bad timing in some ways. The Reformatory is about the Jim Crow South and mass incarceration, but it's selling better than anything I've ever written.
Yeah, isn't that one of your like I saw a list for is for it was like the Black History Month books, and I think that it was like up for a big prize, and I was like, oh look, she's doing
It has won more awards than
it.
anything I've ever written.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it came out a couple years before, but I don't, I mean, my editor just told me they're doing another 10,000 copies. It's continuing to sell very well. And I think that's one of the things that listening to Adrienne's podcast might be really helpful for you too. It's not
And make
so
sure
much
to give her the
addressing,
link for that, sweetheart.
yeah, lifewritingpodcast.com. It's the most recent episode. And it's about giving ourselves permission to create joy in art. And I think that even though we're not talking about fear in the same way, it also applies to you. Giving yourself permission to proceed with your joy and your passion, despite that noise out there, or maybe propelled by that noise up there. If you
Yeah, I
can,
would.
Yeah, and there's an
yeah, go on,
additional
honey.
element because I initially started working with two other women, um, in Life Be Lifing, and they're just like they just fell off. So so
Mhm.
we were supposed to write blog posts, write the play, and so now I'm doing all of those elements plus writing grants. And so not only is it the fear of writing the play, but it's also all of the work plus my day job plus having
Is
a
there
14-year-old.
anyone else you can bring in to help you?
So I am starting to have conversations with other actors, but it's mostly in the realm of like just the stage readings and the stage production, but not in the space of blog writing or kind of setting the stage for people to kind of understand the context of the play. Because I'm also speaking with people, I realize like, oh no, a lot of people haven't read Medea, they don't even know what the
Mhm.
what the play is or the themes that are
Well,
relevant
you
to
do
the
have a
play.
lot of re-education on your hands.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
just say,
Uh-huh.
like, why are
So
you
there's
doing
that
Tyler
element
Perry? Like, no, I'm
that
not
somebody did
doing
say
Tyler
that. Somebody
Perry.
said that. Yeah. And I was like that I respect Tyler Perry, but that's not the one I'm doing.
That's not what you're doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking more like on the administrative side. Like we're co-directing a short film, and like you, I'm juggling all the things. And there are a lot of things I don't know about directing a short film, but I have students who've gone on to make their own short films. I have one who's a grad student at USC, so she's being sort of an unofficial assistant to create, I don't even know what you call it, this graph thing. I don't use graph apps, but she just flipped it together just like that. So maybe there are some aspects of this planning. You can find someone who's a mentee even that they don't even need to be as advanced as you are, or someone with more. I don't know how much experience you have with grant writing, but it sounds horrific. There's some people who do it all the time. It's nothing, not nothing, but it's less for someone who does it all the time than for someone who isn't used to writing grants. It's a whole thing unto itself, from what I understand, right? So
Absolutely.
that I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if you'll have people who can help you or not, but I guess if not, prioritizing would be the thing to do instead of trying to do everything at once. Prioritize that which must be done.
Okay,
And maybe the
now
fun part, frankly, is writing the play.
let me jump in here finally because I feel like what you had to say was going to be the most important to Nunnery. But I did want to offer a thought. Politics is the art of winning. You know, how do we get our agenda? I would suggest that you go. I'm not a terribly political person unless the politics align with my philosophy. I'm really more philosophical. What is it about the current world that you feel is falling into the illusion? Philosophy is about what is true. Politics is about how do we win. To the degree that you don't like what is going on, I would say it would be because someone has fallen into an illusion. Because from my position, the ultimate reality is love and connection. There's no room for conflict there. That it is our fears and our illusions that cause the problems. And I'm not saying that progressives are any closer to the truth than conservatives. That's not the statement I'm making right now. What I'm saying is, what is it you're really trying to say? Take your fear and use it to drive you to courage. Say the thing that you believe to be true, not about politics, but about people and about the world. And say it with all your heart. Say it with absolute, you are going to die when this play is done. All that's going to remain of you is the play. What is it you want this to say about Andrea? About the way Andrea saw the world? What is your statement? The obstacle, the very fear you are feeling, is what the characters in your story should be working out in some non-political context. It's just a relationship. It's just a neighborhood. It's the people in one building. It's one family, whatever it is, such that you are not directly slapping people in the face with what you're saying, but at the same time, you are teaching them the exact things they need in order to change their actions to be more in alignment with love or whatever you think the truth of reality is. It's it's you must create your art. If these other people fell away, it's because that's what needed to happen for you to step up.
Mhm.
And
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 you,
and I, oh, sorry.
no, go for it.
I just wanted to add one last thing in terms of doing an emotional check-in with yourself. First of all, as artists, we always have to give ourselves permission to feel like sometimes a project isn't working out and we need to walk away. I mean, that is always on the table, okay? But I remember when I was working on the reformatory, and I had been working on it for several years, I heard that another author I greatly admire also had a book coming out before mine, because mine wasn't even finished, that was going to be set at the same fictionalized reformatory as mine, as a historical novel. And I was devastated. And my first thought was, well, I should stop working on my book then. That really was my first thought. It was like, okay, well, I guess that's not meant to be. I mean, yeah, never mind. I've been working on it for 4 years, 5 years. It has to do with my family history. I'm trying very desperately to give this character another ending. But now that announcement gave me permission to give in to every voice in my head that told me that's not your story to tell. You don't know what you're talking about. You weren't alive in 1950. This is so hard. And I know mean that that's what's happening with you, but just be on the lookout
Mhm.
for events that feed the inner voices inside of you that we all have as artists that try to sabotage us as we're creating our work.
Well, I
And
think,
yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, and I think that's the other thing that's a bit overwhelming is the voices because you start or the shadow, if you will, of like of when you're doing the work. So yeah, it does become like these tests almost. And yeah, to Stephen's point, I mean, that's ultimately what the play is about. And it shows how the actions that are the antithesis of love takes out everybody, including the children. So,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
your
you
task
know,
is set up for you. It's right in front of you to tell the first draft of this story, even if you never show it to anybody else, must be blisteringly honest. You have to put the most humiliating, most enraged truth possible down there. You can always pull it back later. But speak your truth. But speak your truth about what you think is. What is it about black and white, male and female, rich and poor, whatever it is that is in your heart, the knot that you are trying to untie, that this play is actually a message to your own deeper self. Solve your problem, and you automatically solve the world's problem. If you're trying to teach yourself first. Go from something you have already learned, or go directly into something that is deviling you. You don't have any idea how to deal with this. If in the process of writing it, you see the answer, great. But if all you do is ask the right question, that is just as valid. You don't have to answer every problem. You just have to notice and relate that problem and trust that somewhere in the world there will be an answer, and that maybe this was written as a communication to the person who can find that answer and help change the world. You don't have to do it all. You just have to do your part of it. That you have to do, or you betray yourself. And you betray yourself, and you are no longer that bitch. And you are that bitch, aren't you?
yes, I am.
Great. That's fantastic. So, sign up over on the free Life Writing Circle website, www.lifewrite.com. We can talk more about story, and we also talk about dealing with the emotional things and the executive function things that make it possible to be successful, whatever it is that you're trying to do. So art, so that day job is not a distraction. The day job is the foundation that enables you to have the time to do your art. Okay, you got to take care of got to pay the bills. Okay, you have to be of service to your community. Once you become an artist, you have the responsibility to provide service to the people who are not able to make their living as artists. I remember who I have to serve. So does that help? Fantastic. Okay,
Yes, thank you.
You betcha. We are out of time today. So what I'd like you guys to do is to take off to unmute yourselves and everybody say goodbye.
Oh,
So
thank you
long.
again,
Bye,
everyone.
y'all.
Bye,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Great.
Bye.
Great, great,
Bye,
great,
everybody.
great show today.
Bye,
Have a
everybody. Thanks
great
again, Steve.
weekend.
We will see you next Friday, and be sure to sign up over on Circle. Once again, totally free.
Forever
Although we have
free.
huh?
Forever free.
Forever free. That's right. And I would like to close us today. There are some faces I haven't seen here before. I wish I'd had time to talk to you, and maybe please come back so that we do. I'd love to get to know who you are and provide whatever service I can. And I just like you to know that the divinity within me salutes and acknowledges the divinity within each and every one of you. Namaste. Take care. Be gentle with each other. We love you guys. I enjoy this so much. It's one of my favorite times of my life. Take
Thank
care.
you for sharing that with all of us.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
I agree.